Welcome to the Depth Dive. Today, we're really getting into South Africa's state security agency, the SSA.
That's right.
We've got this overview document, and our plan is pretty simple. Understand this agency, where it came from, how it's structured.
And the thinking behind it, the
Yeah,
whole concept of security that shaped it.
exactly.
And it's quite something, this document. We've got dates, budgets, ministers, laws, history, structure, leaders. It's quite comprehensive.
It really is. And a key thing I want us to track, and for you listening to track, is how the idea of security itself evolved in South Africa. From state security, protecting the government during apartheid, to national security during the democratic shift.
And then, interestingly, back towards state security,
Yeah.
again with the SSA's formation. It's a fascinating thread.
Okay, so let's dive in. The SSA itself, when did it officially start?
October 2009. But it wasn't brand new. It was more of a merger.
Ah, okay. Pulling together existing pieces.
Yeah, exactly. They integrated the National Intelligence Agency, the South African Secret Service, the Intelligence Academy, SANAI, the National Communications Center, and Como SE. So quite a big restructuring.
Right, bringing all those under one roof. Took a while to fully implement, I gather.
Apparently so, yeah.
Okay, so looking at the top level, who's politically responsible for this agency?
Well, ultimate responsibility falls to the minister and the presidency. As of 2023, that was Khumbudzo Nishaveni.
Okay.
And she's supported by deputy ministers for state security, Nomasoto Motong and Kenneth Morlong.
And the day-to-day head?
That's the director general.
Uh-huh.
In 2022, Thembisile Majola held that post.
And the budget. We have some figures, right? Gives a sense of the scale.
We do. Back in the 2010-11 budget, the secret services, as they called them then, got around 3 billion rand, just over 3,052 million.
Okay.
Then jump forward to 2015-16, and that figures up to over 4.3 billion rand. So a significant amount of resources.
Definitely gives you a sense of the financial commitment.
Yeah.
Now, let's rewind a bit. This historical context you mentioned, the shifting ideas about what security means. Tell us about that.
Right. This is where it gets really interesting, I think. Back in the B.J. Vorster era, the absolute focus was state security.
Protecting the state itself.
Precisely. The source uses this term, the referent object, what are you trying to secure? And back then, it was the state apparatus. Because, well, the government represented a minority, its legitimacy was contested.
And that's where BIS came in, the Bureau of State Security.
Exactly. BIS was the tool for that. But it became quite infamous, didn't it? The info scandal.
Ah, yes, using secret government funds to basically run propaganda ops through the media.
Yeah. Trying to manipulate public opinion, it blew up, contributed to BIS's downfall, shows how those methods can backfire, really.
So after the BIS era, what was the next phase?
Then you get the P.W. Botha regime and the rise of the State Security Council, the SSE.
Right.
That became the real power center for security decisions. And it was, well, pretty hawkish, very military-focused.
Right, and this was when we saw those paramilitary police units become more prominent.
That's the period, yes. The focus was still very much on state security, just with a perhaps more militarized approach.
But then things started to shift towards national security.
Yes, and this is a key turn. Under Dr. Neil Barnard, the National Intelligence Service, or NIS, was formed. And the thinking changed, quite fundamentally.
How so?
The idea driving NIS was that real security, lasting security, only comes from having a legitimate government that actually represents the majority. So the referent object shifted
From the state.
to the nation, the whole population. The logic was secure the nation, ensure its well-being, and a legitimate, stable state will follow. The old state security focus wasn't enough, maybe even counterproductive.
That's a really significant conceptual change.
It was huge. And then, under F.W. de Klerk, the existing security forces were facing, let's say, internal issues, partly because of those paramilitary units.
Right.
This kind of created an opening. The national security idea, focusing on the whole nation, became the intellectual underpinning for the transition to democracy. It provided common ground for negotiations.
So securing the wider population helped pave the way, but then, as you said, the pendulum swings back towards state security again, leading to the SSA.
That's what the overview suggests, yes. As the new democratic state faced new challenges, the emphasis seemed to shift back towards protecting the state itself, its institutions, its stability.
Interesting. So the SSA, born from the NIS framework, which was about national security, ends up prioritizing state security again.
It seems that way. It's like a cycle, reflecting changing threats and priorities. Raises some interesting questions, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, so what is the SSA's official job description then? Its mandate.
Well, according to their own description in the source, it's about providing the government with intelligence on threats, both domestic and foreign,
Threats to what specifically?
to national stability, the constitutional order, and importantly, the safety and well-being of the people. So citizen welfare is still explicitly mentioned, even with that state security emphasis.
And what kinds of threats are they looking out for?
The document lists the main focus areas: terrorism, sabotage, subversion, espionage, and organized crime. Pretty standard stuff for an intelligence agency, but gives you a clear picture of their priorities.
Right. Now, these agencies don't just make up the rules as they go. What's the legal scaffolding around the SSA?
There's quite a bit of legislation, actually. Starts with the Constitution, of course, the 1996 one.
Right.
Then there's a specific proclamation from 2009 that officially set up the SSA.
Okay.
Then you've got the Core Intelligence Services Act from 2002. The source mentions the 2005 Act 2, possibly an amendment, notes a slight confusion there. These acts define their powers and limits.
Makes sense. What else?
There are the Intelligence Services Regulations from 2003, more detailed rules, the National Strategic Intelligence Act from '94, and the White Paper on Intelligence from that same year, setting the broader strategy.
Still going.
Yeah, it's a list. More recently, the Protection of State Information Bill from 2011, that's about handling secrets, then acts covering diplomatic privileges, Foreign Military Assistance Regulation, the Defense Act, the Police Act, SAPS Act 95.
Okay, so interactions with other state bodies are covered.
Right. Also, the Financial Intelligence Center Act, fighting money laundering and crime. And crucially, RICA, the Regulation of Interception of Communications Act from 2002, that governs surveillance.
WICA, yeah, that's a big one.
Definitely. And finally, even the Auditor General Act is listed, showing there's meant to be financial oversight. It's a complex web, trying to balance power and control.
Absolutely. So let's look inside the agency. How is it actually structured, the main parts?
Okay, it's broken down into several key branches. First up is the domestic branch. This grew out of the old National Intelligence Agency.
NIA, right.
Its job is internal threats, economic, social, political, even environmental issues that could destabilize things. They feed intelligence to the president, to NIACC, the National Intelligence Coordinating Committee, sort of the central clearinghouse for all intelligence. And they also share with the police, SAPS. Plus, they handle counterintelligence inside SA.
Okay, so that's domestic. What about looking outward?
That's the foreign branch. Previously, the South African Secret Service, SAS.
SAS, okay.
Their focus is purely external, gathering intelligence abroad, identifying foreign threats or opportunities relevant to South Africa, and they also report into NIOs.
Got it. The overview also mentions a National Communications Center, NCC. What's that about?
The NCC is the hub for signals intelligence and communications interception for the whole government. It brings together the technical side, working through a signals intelligence evaluation center and the Office of Interception Center.
Sounds very technical. And COMSEC, that name definitely sounds like spy stuff.
It does, doesn't it? COMSEC Communications Security, also known as Electronic Communications Security, COSICETI, LTD, their job is vital, protecting the government's own electronic communications, keeping secrets safe from hackers or spies.
Okay, the cyber shield, essentially.
Kind of, yeah. Then there's the Office for Interception Center, OIC, mentioned separately too.
How does that differ from the NCC?
The OIC seems to be the operational unit that actually does the intercepting for security and law enforcement. And as we mentioned with the laws, it's strictly governed by RICA.
With oversight.
Yes, crucial oversight from the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence. That's the parliamentary committee with multiple parties, and the Inspector General of Intelligence, who's meant to be an independent watchdog. Layers of accountability, in theory.
Important layers. What about training and development?
That falls to SANI-I, the South African National Academy of Intelligence. It's based in Mafeking. It handles the academic side, training skies basically, but also research thinking about strategic intelligence issues and development support for the agency.
So it's the in-house university and think tank.
Pretty much. And one last piece mentioned is the Intelligence Services Council on Conditions of Employment.
That sounds very specific, HR related.
Essentially, yes. It advises the minister on things like salaries, benefits, performance standards for SSA staff. It's made up of at least 3 people appointed by the minister, including a chairperson. Ensures some independent advice on managing personnel.
Right. Now, you mentioned the director generals earlier. The list in the overview, it shows quite a bit of turnover since 2009, doesn't it?
It really does. You look at the names. Makatuka, 09 to 11. then Glomo acting till 13, Cujo 13 to 16, Fraser 16 to 18, Jofta acting till 21, Musimanga acting till 22, then Majola from 22 to 23.
That's a lot of change at the very top in, what, 14 years?
Yeah.
Several acting DGs, too.
Exactly. It certainly makes you wonder about stability, consistency in direction, institutional memory. It signals a potentially turbulent period for the agency's leadership.
Definitely something to note. Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive here, what are the main things we should take away about the SSA from this source?
I think first, its origin as a consolidation, bringing different intelligence parts together. Second, its broad mandate, covering both internal and external threats. Third, the complex legal framework meant to guide and constrain it. Fourth, that structure we just discussed, domestic, foreign, technical, training branches.
In that historical context.
Absolutely crucial. That swing between prioritizing state security and national security, and back again. Understanding that history is key to understanding the SSA today, I think. It didn't just appear, it evolved out of very specific South African circumstances and debates about what needs protecting.
And as you just highlighted, that leadership turnover really emphasizes the dynamic, perhaps even unstable nature of the agency recently.
It certainly suggests ongoing change and transition. And it leaves us with a final thought, really, for you listening. What does that pendulum swing between state and national security tell us about South Africa's broader journey?
Yeah, what drives those shifts?
Exactly. And what does the current emphasis on state security mean in today's context? What are the ongoing arguments about the role, the power, and crucially the oversight of an agency like the SSA in a democracy?
Lots to think about there. A complex agency shaped by a complex history.
Indeed, it's never simple when you're talking about state intelligence.